Hello, you're listening to From McClay to Zelma. I'm your host, Karen Miller. This podcast is about the adventures and travels of two women from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who work for the U.S. Army at Zama, Japan. Their stories are told through hundreds of letters written home. Episode 17, Aunt Mae, letters 43B to 46. If you listened to previous podcasts, you know that Peg likely undertook this adventure to get away from a painful divorce. I always wondered, however, what inspired Bern? Did she just go along for the adventure, or did something happen in her life too? Well, in this letter, Bern makes reference to some pins that had belonged to her Aunt Mae. Aunt Mae, who I knew was John's older sister, moved in with the family after his first wife, Myrtle, passed away. She helped him raise the three boys and my grandmother, but also was the primary caretaker for Bernice, who was just a baby when her mom died. Until I did some research, I knew that Aunt Mae was very close to Bern, but I didn't know that Mae died October 22nd, 1952. Bern signed her death certificate that I looked at yesterday, and the cause of death was listed as pernicious anemia and senility that had gone on for several years. She died at the McClay Street home, so I imagine that Bern and Helen and Peg and John had taken care of her for several years. Apparently, Aunt Mae belonged to a service organization called the Rebeccas. That was the female side of a men's lodge started in 12th century England called the Oddfellows Lodge. I'm fairly certain that Mae never married. I don't know who Jeannie is. I imagine a cousin from John's side of the family in Altoona. Also, another little mystery for me, I originally thought that perhaps Blondie, the Cocker Spaniel, had been Aunt Mae's dog, but I don't think that's the case. The story that I remember is that Blondie had belonged to one of Helen's relatives that had passed away and lived a few blocks from them. Blondie just showed up at 526 afterward to be taken in by Helen and John, according to the story. I hope that the person's name is mentioned in one of the letters so that this mystery can be solved. The only other way I can think of is combing through census records to find a relative that lived near them. And that wouldn't really be a guarantee. I do remember hearing that Blondie was the only exception to John's rule about no pets. Once I was traveling through town and had one of my dogs with me. Bern and Peg made her sit on the back porch while I visited them. In these letters, there's more commentary on Sis and Mark not writing. A quick bit of math tells me they have two children under the age of 5. I also think they had fairly recently moved to a new town. Having been there myself, I imagine they just have their hands full raising 2 small children. Peg's outrage about not receiving letters from them seems a little odd. I did exchange letters with people before technology changed the world, but I don't really understand how they feel about this. Even in my childhood, phone calls were common enough, though quite an expense, that we kept in touch that way. Bern, Peg, and my grandmother were the only ones that wrote to me regularly during my childhood. I also thought that it was mostly to train me how to read their handwriting. My grandmother's was particularly challenging. Other relatives might drop a quick note in a package or send a letter once a year in Christmas cards, and they would oftentimes print those notes rather than writing them in old-fashioned cursive. So it's time for letter 43B from Bern, written the 12th of October, 1953. Dearest Mama-san and Papa-san, Helen, you're getting downright Japanese-ish in your replies to our letters. You catch on daijobi. Thanks, Daddy, for the poem. You're cute. It is fastened to my dresser's mirror. We received the boxes with our winter coats, jellies, pretzels, and good old hometown papers. Thank you very much. Domo arigato. I was surprised to receive a second letter from you saying that you hadn't heard about our experiences during tests. It seems ages ago since I wrote to you all about it. Needless to say, we are both okay. In fact, no one that I know was in any real danger at all. Newspaper accounts usually magnify something like that. Please don't worry in the future. Honestly, since we are under Army jurisdiction, there's absolutely no cause for concern, We are well taken care of. Thanks for sending the shoes and for the 101 things you are doing for us. Yes, I can get shoes repaired here, and do, but 1 week's walking over these roads sends them to the shop again. You have no idea the conditions. A few pavements in Yokohama are macadam or concrete. Mostly they are dirt and stone. Shoes wear out at a preposterously fast rate. I'm finding, too, that I don't have the right clothes for my needs this winter. Not being lucky like Peg to work in the little Pentagon, I'm in North Camp, where the buildings are not equipped with steam heat, but depend on space heaters or pot-bellied stoves. Come hell or high water, these will not be installed until late October. If the few really cold days we've had are any example, I need some cardigan sweaters and some jackets. I will get some at the PX, but if folks are still inquiring as to Christmas suggestions, that would be a good idea. Any kind, any color, probably 36, 38, or 40, depending on the type and the knit. Now, don't start worrying about this situation. No one is going to freeze, but I'm just giving practical hints as to what is needed. Daddy was concerned in one of the letters about our Japanese lessons. We gave up the class because we only started on the 5th or 6th lesson. They run new classes about every 6 or 8 weeks, and I'm signed up for the next one, which will probably begin in November or December. Meanwhile, I'm keeping a vocabulary notebook and jotting down such useful phrases as, what time is it? I'm hungry, etc. More about our progress later. I can now say left, right, wait a minute, okay, bathroom, few, and many. You'd be surprised how far that brief vocabulary can take you. Some lieutenant at New Cumberland once told me that all you really needed to learn of any language was, I'm hungry and I love you. I can say the first, and so far I haven't needed to say the second. So you see, I'm making out Daijobi. Since we're going to invest in a good camera, I'm starting tomorrow night to take a course in basic photography. If Dottie Jones returns my book tomorrow, in which a few snapshots of Zama were mistakenly left by me, I will forward some to you, and I can see why I need a course in photography. And you can see why I need a course in photography. Vi Domenecki and I are going. I don't know if Peg will join us or not. You know her in classes. We'll see. Don't be too harsh in your thinking and opinion of Isabel. I simply can't stand Merle Copeland either, but if you can make her happy, I'm all for it. She really needs some love and affection, and who am I to say whether or not she did the right thing? Since I realize more and more how little I understand people, I also realize more and more how ill-suited I am to pass judgment. Let's all just hope that this will prove to be a good marriage and a happy one. Our church sounds simply lovely. I'm real anxious to see it again, but in the meantime, I wish you could visit us here at the Zama Chapel. Someday I'll get a really good picture of the exterior, but I do wish you could come inside. Warm wood panels, long aisles, beautifully carved altar, the loveliest toned organ, and now the new chimes. Your sermons are undoubtedly better, but ours is a lovely place in which to worship. There is a money order for $25. I'm dividing my savings between the bank here and the one at home. You see, I'm afraid that bridge between Japan and U.S. will not be completed by the time I'm ready to return, and I will not go by ship again. So I'm saving my pennies for air transportation. It takes a lot of pennies, hence the scarcity of money sent home. Since the 10% differential is gone, I'm going to be downright poor instead of having a lot of money saved as I had hoped. Also, there's not much real chance that my job will be upgraded or promoted, so I'll probably come home a lowly GS3. Oh well, the experience will be worth it, they say. At times I wonder. I'm rather disgusted with civil service overseas, and if I didn't have so much to lose, I'd probably leave when this tour is completed. I'll not decide just yet, however. I'm not quite ready to go back to Good Shepherd. Did Peg tell you that we had a very nice letter from Mrs. Meyer? She said that San Jose is very nice, but Harrisburg is home. Do you think she could be scotchy bits homesick? She described a visit to Yellowstone Park, which sounded very interesting. They saw many bears. In fact, since they camped at night, the bears stole some of their food. She also saw the Mormon Tabernacle and heard a recital there in Salt Lake City. If you remember, that was one of the high spots of my trip to San Francisco with Christian Endeavor. So I was very much interested in her account. Wasn't it kind of her to write? We really appreciated that. Peg is quite bitter about the fact that so few of her friends write, and I think she's actually mad at Mark and Sis. She really does have some bad luck. I don't understand it. She herself will do anything for you and goes out of her way to make things nice, but people don't respond. She is not sending any Christmas gifts outside the family because she has not heard from people. Now, please don't let her know I told you this. She does not want me to interfere in any way. I have strict orders, but I don't like to see her get hurt because I know how sweet she really is. I guess her choice of friends is just not good. They are stinkers. Daddy won't like this letter because it doesn't contain any Japanese news, but I didn't go anywhere lately, so I don't have any new things to tell. Maybe next time. You are to stop worrying about my health. I'm fine. Since the sun came out, I don't get tired, so it must have been psychological or something. You take care of yourselves. Understand? Taka-san love, Bern. Father, if you think I don't write often enough, listen here. I now owe letters to Sam, Esther, Helen, Nancy, Aunt Dora, Mrs. Decker, Miriam, Elva, and Mrs. Meyer. You're lucky I write once a week, Papa-san. So included in this letter was a newspaper clipping showing men, and with the title in some birds, it says, the 150-year-old traditional sparrow hunting was carried out late Wednesday night at the village of Samiyoshi in Yamanashi Prefecture, where villagers had spread a large net 90 feet in width and 40 feet in height at a bamboo grove to catch 20,000 sparrows or 650 pounds in weight. And then Bern wrote on the bottom, I must find out more about this. Why catch them? What do they do with them? I thought the Japanese loved birds. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're hunting them to eat. I mean, why else would you need 20,000 birds? Anyway, the fact that they could catch 20,000 birds in one night is pretty impressive. And I did a little research and did not find anything more out about this tradition. Letter 44 from Peg, the 16th of October, 1953. Dear Mother and Daddy, the big boys are in the general's office at a meeting, so I'm putting the time to good use. On Wednesday, I had the nicest surprise. I got a round-robin letter from the folks at Polyclinic Hospital. It was written on bookkeeping machine paper, and Tokusan of them wrote a note. It was real grand to be remembered by them after being away from the polyclinic for so long. I answered the letter today and wrote 2 sheets this size on both sides. I guess Bets, that's her sister and my grandmother, will tell you about it. Yesterday, I went to the PX and got 2 skirts and 2 sweaters. One is navy blue cashmere and a wool skirt, which was $7, and the other one is a forest green wool skirt that was $5. Both of them are made straight, no gores or fullness, and they fit nicely. Today, Yamanuchi is supposed to hem them for me. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I wrote her a note and told her to make them the same length as my black skirt, so I don't know what might happen. The sweaters are both cardigans. One is light green Orlon and the other is a light blue nylon. They make very pretty outfits, and I can interchange them with some of the skirts and sweaters that I already have. I'm just so tickled. Bern and I went to the PX in Yoko last night, and I bought a wide light brown leather belt and blouse, so now I'm fixed up pretty well. I decided not to have a suit made since I got those skirts and sweaters. Some people say that they do nice work, and others say they just can't fit our American figures the way they should. I usually go to lunch about 12:30. And yesterday, Colonel Van Tool asked me to get something out of a file about 12:20, and I uttered a small moan. He asked me what was wrong. I told him that if they didn't have any skirts and sweaters left at the PX, I was going to be in a bad mood all afternoon. He said, for heaven's sake, girl, then leave. There's nothing worse than a discontented woman. So I left 10 minutes early. Isn't he a doll? After lunch, he and I were having a most serious discussion about women's clothing, and Colonel Bain walked in the office. Colonel Bain is next in authority to General Standel, the chief surgeon. Colonel Van Tool didn't see Colonel Bain come in, but I did. So after Colonel Bain left, Colonel Van Tool said, why didn't you tell me he was coming in? Here I was talking about sweaters. Very disgustingly. He's so funny. He thinks I have a, get this, sweet disposition. But I told him that it's just a cover-up for my real self, the same as his gruffness is a cover-up for his real self. Things are kind of dull around camp now that Jeanette and Teen have left. We stayed in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday and went into the PX in Yoko last night. Tonight we're going into the 45. I guess I'm losing my fatal charm as far as the Marine is concerned, because Sunday night when he brought me home, he said he'd call, and he hasn't called since. However, when he says he'll call, he means the next day or the next week. I hope he calls me for a date tonight, because I'm going to tell him that I'm going to Yoko for a party. That'll make him wonder, won't it? A new DAC and officer's mess is now open in South Camp Zama. The food is pretty good, but it's cafeteria style because they don't have enough money yet to have waitresses. The other night I asked Boy Maisie, pushover, that's me. The Marine just called and asked me to come over to Utsugi for dinner tonight, so I said, okay, I'll never learn, will I? Anyway, back to the story about the mess. I asked the sergeant when they were going to have baked ham with raisin sauce. He said that was a mighty fine suggestion. I said that if they were lacking in suggestions, I would be more than glad to furnish menus for the next month or so. I bet I'll get some sauerkraut for sure. We've been having steak, roast veal, and roast beef every night. Not much variety, is it? As I said before, everyone eats steak over here like mad. In fact, when we know that a girl has a date, we say, who's buying your steak tonight? Last night, Bern and I went to the PX before we ate, so we were hungry as bears. We started talking about the good food that you make, Mother, and the thing that struck our fancy last night was oyster stew and boiled hot dogs. Remember how you'd make soup for them as liked it and hot dogs for the rest of us? Gad, for the first week when I get home, I'm going to do nothing but eat. The second week, I'm going to do nothing but cook. I'm aching to cook a meal. The third week, I guess I'll waddle around and look for a job somewhere. The colonel just took off for the weekend. I asked him what the meeting was all about, and he told me a little about it. I really can't tell you, although I don't think it's a military secret. I want to be on the safe side and keep my mouth shut. It's common knowledge over here that the commies aren't about to call it quits yet, but no one seems to know what or where they'll pop up next. I'm sure it's a mess, isn't it? Being real philosophical, I'm very thankful that I'm slowly, and I haven't accomplished it yet altogether, getting so that I live for each day instead of planning too far in advance. I personally think it would be wonderful if I and everyone else too could make plans for the future and be reasonably sure that they wouldn't be disrupted all over the place by some stupid people and their want for power. I'm not good at expressing myself in this vein by letter, but I suppose you know what I mean. The world situation never meant too much to me back home because I was in a nice little groove, and Korea and the mess were all far away. Over here, we come in daily contact with the fellows that have fought the war and have been lucky enough to come through it. They refer to World War II as the Middle War, not as we back home call it the last war. One night, Teen and I were with the Marines, and when they found out that Teen had been in Seoul, one of them said, "Remember such and such road out of Seoul, how badly it was torn up?" Teen said that she did, and he said, "Well, I did it." See what I mean? It's common, ordinary stuff for us to hear tales like that from different people, but back home a fella is made a great fuss over. It's a shame, I think, that the American people don't realize more about the whole business, what it means, and can be so complacent about it. Oh, I just better get off the subject because I really don't know that much. I just know how much my personal feelings have changed in the last few months. The weather is delightfully autumnish. Aside from not having too much heat in the billet and having to take a hot shower to go to bed to keep warm, we're enjoying the weather. We're wearing winter clothes now. I'm glad I have my fur coat because I know it's going to get cold enough to wear it. I'm going to sign off for now and mail this because I probably won't get a chance to write again until next week. Love and kisses to Blondie too. Peggy-san. Letter 45 from Peg, written October 21st, 1953. Dear Mother and Daddy, this will be short because I can't bear to write. I'm going to buy a typewriter, I think. Please. Did the boxes we sent home still have the customs tags on them? And had they been opened that you know of? I know that you've just forgotten to tell us because I asked these things in one of my letters, but please tell us. And did you have to pay any duty? How's my bank account these days? I get the paycheck today that has the first allotment taken out of it, so the bank should receive it sometime soon. I wrote and asked Cam Curtin to notify me when they got the first allotment and to notify me if they don't receive a check some month. They should get $70 every month. I guess they won't get the first check until after the next payday because they only send them once a month. Hooray for you. You got a letter from Buffalo. You're just as easy, you two, as I am. I knew you'd break down and call, but I'll be darned if I'll break down and write. I think it's real fine of people to receive presentos from us and not even write to thank us. And that goes for all of them except you two and Pete. Yes, there's supposed to be a lid on the Sprinter pot. Darn them, anyhow. There were lids with them when I had them packed for mailing. We can use my lid, though. Aren't they the cutest things? I was at a Marine Squadron party last night and met a real darling lieutenant. Gad, he's cute. El Capitan's squadron party is next Tuesday or Wednesday, so after he got reports of me being at the party last night, because those Marines are worse gossips than any women ever were, he called me today and asked me to be sure to keep both evenings free so that I could go with him. I guess he thinks I'm so ravishingly popular now that he has to get his bid in early. This is a good week. Next week, I'll probably be moaning the blues all over the place. I'm waiting very patiently for the shoes. I'll just hound Pete, the mail clerk, to death about whether I got a letter or a package. I'll bet he hates to hear me walk down the hall. The new mess is closing because the CEO of Zama says that it isn't making out, which isn't true. Starting Monday, it's going to be run by the Japanese Central Exchange, which runs all the PXs and snack bars. I hope the food is as good because it is pretty good now. We had pork and sauerkraut the other night. I must take a shower. I got a letter from Mrs. Meyer the other day, but I'll wait until I can type to answer it. She seems anxious to get home again, though, although she's having a good time. Bye for now. Take care of yourselves and Blondie. Love, Redhead. Letter 46 from Bern, written the 25th of October, 1953. Hi, folks. Let me tell you about the delightful weekend. On Saturday afternoon, Mary Carrera, a DAC friend, and I went to Tokyo to see the baseball game between the American All-Stars, headed by Eddie Lapat, and the Pacific All-Stars Japanese team. It was quite an experience. One Air Force band, one Japanese band, an interesting contrast in music. The Americans won 13-6, and in general outclassed the Japanese. However, we did indulge in some sloppy playing, which resulted in several errors. Our guys were much more powerful when it came to batting. Hank Sawyer hit 3 home runs and a double. Yogi Berra, 2 homers, and even the pitch. Robin Roberts came through with 1 homer. One of the funniest things seen was the sight of these great big athletes attempting to make the polite Japanese bow as they received their gifts after each home run. Evidently, they had been coached beforehand to be polite, but in the stress of the game, most of them forgot the head nodding, bow from the waist greeting, which they should have used, and instead gave a regular feminine curtsy. The big sissies. The Japanese are really spectacular fielders. Once or twice I had to blink to make sure that I saw what I saw. They are very speedy. The American spectators made all the racket that was made. The Japanese audience was very quiet and polite, only expressing their pleasure by smiles and nods. I'm told, though, that they are gradually being educated to our way, and that games between their own teams, they do make some noise. However, one must be polite and conventional in front of these American sons. After the game, Mary and I dropped in on some of her girlfriends who live in Tokyo, and they very graciously took us to the Union Club for dinner. At one time, this was a fabulous club for American civilians in Japan. Now it has come down a bit, but it's still a very nice place to eat and to entertain one's friends. Probably if we lived in Tokyo, I would join, but the cost is prohibitive considering the number of times I would get to use it. However, the food and atmosphere was a wonderful change from the messes and snack bars. I had turkey chow mein, and it was good. Sunday, Mary and I went on a tour provided by Army Special Services, which took us on an all-day combination bus ride and hiking trip to the Japanese countryside. It was a beautiful, sunny, perfect autumn day, and we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. We took sandwiches and fruit with us for lunch, and were provided with excellent coffee and cookies by the tour sponsors. The cost for the day's outing, 30 cents. If the scads of snapshots I took turn out, you can be looking for a deluge of pictures next week. Speaking of pictures, guess who's parading across this writing table? Mark's son, accompanied by babysitter Marlene. We received a long, newsy letter from Sis today, complete with 2 sets of pictures of the children. Perhaps you've seen them. Marlene's walking around, viewing everything in sight, talking to her toy animal, and riding horsey back up in the flower bed. They are darling, and both of them seem to be getting too big. Sis said that 2 things Marky seems to like best at school are painting and girls. He's quite the guy. It's too darn bad you have to suffer with your knee, Helen, but it certainly seems that you're getting some enjoyable evenings out of it, too. I still think you 2 should get a television set. Now, honest, wouldn't you like to have one? Go ahead. I've just finished reading a most enjoyable collection of dog stories by Gladys Tabor. She writes the articles in Women's Home Journal about her farm, Still Meadow. Remember, Helen? The book is called When Dogs Meet People and is wonderful light reading. I'm sure the public library would have it. Maybe Nancy-san could get it for you sometime. I don't remember just what the different lodge pins which belonged to Aunt Mae looked like, and right at this moment, I can't remember where I put them. In my 3rd floor bureau, maybe. But please feel free to look for them and certainly pass them on to Jeannie. You know how important the Rebeccas were to Aunt Mae, and I'm sure she would want to do right by them. I don't remember what I said about Good Shepherd Home, but whatever it was, don't take it seriously. I'm saving that for my old age, and as yet, I'm far from ready to go into retirement. Probably it appealed to me as a very useful kind of job in contrast to all this idleness and waste over here. Many things could happen to change my mind, perhaps, between now and then, but I have a pretty strong suspicion that 1 year will be plenty. There's no purpose to this life, and since I've tried hard but still can't see myself as a party girl, the social life does not compensate, for me at least. I forgot to mention that on our trip yesterday, we were shown through an exclusive private high school. The tuition is $45 per year, plus room and board, and honestly, the equipment was badly battered and worn, but the standards are considered very high, and the real cream of the Japanese crop come here. Having our new Camp Curtin building in mind, the comparison was pitiful. In the home ec room, they were using hibachi pots as stoves, but all covered with clean rags and papers was their prized possession, a gleaming white electric stove. Truly, these people are to be admired for doing so much with so little. This visit has made me very curious to see our mission schools, so I'm going to write a mate and invite myself for a visit to one of them. We'll see how far I get with this. Interesting, huh? By the way, the golf pro's name is Mark. I've graduated from the woods to the irons, and I'm improving slightly. Mark-san says, Oku-san, that's me, practice. She can do it. The literal translation of Oko-san is wife. Since I have gray hair, obviously cannot be called girl-san. It must be Oku-san. Too much thinking about this could give me a real complex. Enough nonsense for tonight. Love, Bern. P.S. My observation of ticket windows has taught me how to write 1, 2, 3 in Japanese. It's very difficult. 1 is just 1 slash, 2 is 2 slashes, and 3 is 2 little slashes and a long slash. After that, I get fouled up because it becomes complicated. I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and if you are, please subscribe in Spotify. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus button in the top right-hand corner and rate. This will help my listeners find my podcast more easily. You can access the show's website at www.FromMcClayToZama.com, where I have posted photos from each episode. The podcast is now available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Patreon, and Amazon Music. We recently created a YouTube channel for the podcast where I will post some reflections on this project. In the next episode, Tokyo, you will hear letters 47 through 50. I hope you have a great week.